This is a fascinating piece of reporting that we're going to talk about now. We're going to start with this photo. It's from September 9, 1957, and it shows Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones among a crowd of white students trying to keep black students from integrating at an Arkansas high school. This is a Washington Post reporting. Reports that Jones, who was 14 at the time, could be seen standing a few yards from where the 6 black students were being jostled and repelled with snarling racial slurs by ringleaders of the mob.
So after the Cowboys beat the Giants yesterday, Cowboys owner Jerry Jones answered more questions about a story published by the Washington Post earlier this week. So the Post published a story with a photo that showed a 14-year-old Jones peering over a crowd of white students as 6 black teenagers walked up the steps of North Little Rock High School in Arkansas as the school was integrated in 1957. Jones said he was there out of curiosity, not animosity. Here's more from him.
That was 65 years ago, and I had no idea when I walked up there what we were doing, and it just is a reminder to me of how to improve and do things the right way.
Okay, a little context here. The Cowboys are one of 7 teams not to have had a black head coach and have had 2 black coordinators since Jones has owned the team, but their highest football executive vice president of player personnel, Will McClay, is black. Jones has complied with the Rooney Rule in which teams have to interview minority candidates. Jones said his decisions are made for business reasons, not race. Stephen A., your reaction to all of this?
I'm pretty pissed. And let me say this. I'm pissed off, but not for reasons that people would think. I'm very, very fond of Jerry Jones, and I'm not hiding that from anybody. Is his record perfect? No. But I'm pissed off because he doesn't deserve what just happened. He doesn't deserve it. One report, our report, said he was 14 years old. Another report said he was 15 years old. At minimum, that's 65 years ago. You're gonna bring up a picture of Jerry Jones standing at this protest. No question, what was happening is not something that anybody as a black person should be appreciative about. We had 6 students at that particular North Little Rock High School that was trying to desegregate the school.
No one should be okay with it.
Nobody should be okay with that.
Regardless of
race. We
race.
understand that. We get all of that. We also understand what we as black people and as black folks, black men have to deal with. And by the way, to some degree, we still deal with a lot of things, and we all know it. Racism is alive and well. Bigotry and prejudice is alive and well. We get all of that. What I'm saying is, here's the part that bothers me. You want to get on Jerry Jones and his track record, fine. In 2003 or so, you know what? You should have hired, Dennis Green shouldn't have got an interview on the phone. It should have been an in-person interview. Right. You should have followed the letter of the rule of the law as it pertained to the Rooney Rule. He wanted Bill Parcells, universally recognized one of the greatest football coaches we've ever seen. It was clear he wanted Bill Parcells. Nobody else was going to have a chance of getting that job. That's what he wants to do. You want to malign him for that? Fine. You want to point out that he's one of 7 black NFL owners that's never hired an African American as a head coach? Fine, do all of that. Attack him for that. Go ahead, no problem. I see a plethora of African Americans employed by him. I see black players who played for him who rave about this man and what he's done for them on a personal level. But if you want to go by his hiring record when it comes to head coaches, no problem. Can't go the executive route because we know it's him. You know what I'm saying? He want to be the president, the GM, the owner. He want to do everything. And then he's got his children that he leans on as well. So he can't go the executive route.
So joining us now, sports and feature columnist at the Washington Post, Sally Jenkins. Sally broke this story along with her co-author, David Moranis. We're so happy that you could join us this morning. Thank you very much. Happy Thanksgiving to you. And again, I have to commend you on your reporting. This whole thing is right. I mean, it's stunning. Really stunning. It's fascinating. So let's start with the picture, okay, and then we'll talk about how we could have sort of moved diversity along with coaching in the NFL and in sports. Let's start with this photograph, though. What did you learn about this from this photograph?
Well, I think the first thing you learn is just how widespread the segregationists were in Little Rock and North Little Rock. Jerry Jones's high school was North Little Rock, which was across the Arkansas River from Central High School, which is the school that got all of the attention when Eisenhower sent in federal troops to protect the Little Rock Nine at that school over there. But the segregationist agitators were actually very active on both sites. And the fact that we knew that generationally, Jerry Jones had to have experienced the events in Little Rock more generally, but to find him in the photograph and to learn that he experienced one of those incidents right on the schoolhouse steps was pretty revelatory. We were blown away, to put it mildly.
Let me ask you about this picture just quickly here, because he's saying, I was just there, I wasn't participating, I was there just sort of to observe. But with the photograph, would you point out in your reporting is that in order to get where he was at the top of those stairs, that he had to get up there pretty quickly, and those were sort of the students that were keeping the black students from entering. Does this say anything about his participation? Are you making any sort of judgment about it, or?
So he's actually younger than the ringleaders that you can see in the photographs. That's one thing that we noticed. We did look at a sequence of photos leading up to those schoolhouse steps, and the white teenagers on the steps did have to move around the black students to get to the top of the steps. Nevertheless, he is further back. He is younger than the lead participants. And so I think that, you simply have to take him at his word unless something else appears, that he was there more out of curiosity and fascination, as opposed to being really at the very epicenter of the active events. He does remember, one thing he told us that did not make it in the story is that he does remember that it got physical. The tough guys that you see in the center of the photograph end up really pushing the kids down off the steps. And in fact, one of them is arrested.
I hope everyone takes a moment to read the reporting that you and David did as they watch football, because the reason you did this is not just about that photo, it's about what it means with his position of power in the league now and the NFL now and the position of power the Cowboys have, right? And this is part of what the Washington Post is doing, examining the NFL's, as you guys call, decades-long failure to equitably promote black coaches, right? And
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, this story is part of a long series we've been doing called Blackout, which is examining the issues in the league about the fact that almost 70% of the workforce is black, and yet there are only 3 head coaches. One of the things our data has found is that mid-level black coaches who do manage to get head coaching jobs waited an average of 9 years longer in mid-level assistant coaching jobs than their white counterparts. So there's some very striking inequities within the league, as the league admits.
This is Hoppin' Bob. You run afoul of Bob, you run afoul of me. You run afoul of Bob, you run afoul of me. You run afoul of Bob, you run afoul of me.
You want to get on him about the head coaches? Fine. But you gonna bring up a photo of him when he was 14, 15 years old, 65 or 66 years ago. This is where cancer culture gets into the mix, and you're making an attempt to eradicate him, what he stands for, and all he has done. I will remind you, we've had Senator Robert Byrd, who passed away a few years ago, that was a member of the KKK. We've had other politicians, whose record, who didn't want the segregate, who didn't want desegregation. Right. The George Wallaces of the world, the Bull Connors of the world, and others, okay? We've seen all of this. We've had elected officials on Capitol Hill that are implementing and legislating policy that affects our lives. But we're gonna go to Jerry Jones. And by the way, I don't have a problem with the photo. I don't have a problem. If he was 30, 35, 40 years old, that's different. Right. 14, 15 years old. 14, 15 years old. Right. So now some folks are going to get to look at Jerry Jones, and who's from Arkansas. This is the South. We understand what the South represented. You understand what I'm saying? Remember, when slavery ended with the Emancipation Proclamation, you talk about 1863 and what have you. What did Dr. Martin Luther King talk about? Well, you didn't give black folks nothing. You ridded slavery from them, but you gave them no land. But you gave white peasants from Europe land in the West and the Midwest, okay? So we understand from an historical perspective where it all comes from. what the South represented at least once upon a time, and in some people's eyes still to this day. But we're gonna lean on somebody when he was 14, born and raised in the South, and we're gonna pick it up 66 years later to say, you know something?
Yeah.
You ain't hire a black coach. I think that's pretty low. I really, really do. I think that part is pretty low. If he were an adult, that would be different. But a 14, 15-year-old kid raised in the South who literally is just standing there looking, and we use that to bring up in the year 2022. Oh, this is where you were. You got to explain this. You ready to explain what you did when you were 14?
Yeah.
How about you?
Right.
I can't.
Little Rock, Arkansas, and the first phase of the trouble. The white population are determined to prevent colored students from going to the school their own children attend. Picketing the school, they clash with the police. The law of the land decrees integration of white and colored school children. But racial feeling still runs high in the southern states of America, as shown by these pictures taken by an amateur cameraman. The law of the land is rejected. A near riot developed, so the police made a number of arrests among the ringleaders of the white pickets. Later, the Central High School, Little Rock Storm Center, was sealed off by orders of the governor, who called out the state National Guard. Colored youngsters arrived under safe conduct by the guards. But no sooner had they arrived than they were off again. Arkansas had evidently decided to make its own laws on the subject of integration. Any colored person anywhere near the school came in for violent abuse, even if they now escaped physical violence. Phase 2, President Eisenhower sends 500 troops of the 101st Airborne Division of the United States Army to Little Rock by night. They are to keep order and to see that the law of the land is obeyed. White and colored students to go to the same school. The federal government clamps down on Arkansas. What Governor Forbes proposes to do next, apart from comparing Little Rock with Paris under the Nazis and Budapest under the Russians, remains to be seen.
Listen, Genesis chapter 11 verse 10 explains the genealogy of Shem. Shem was a black man in Africa. If you repeat this fact, Genesis 14 verse 13, Abraham steps on the scene. Being a descendant of Shem, which is a fact, means Abraham too was black. Abraham, born in the city of a black man, called Nimrod, grandson of Ham. Ham had 4 sons. One was named Canaan. Here, let me do some explaining. Abraham, Isaac was Jacob had 12 sons, for real, and these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10, these were the children of Israel. According to Genesis chapter 10.